Friends, welcome into another edition of the Soccer Tejas Podcast. I'm Alex Parra. It's always an honor to be with you. We appreciate all of you that follow us, that also send us your questions and make us a part of your life. We really, really do appreciate it. A lot to talk about. Let's not waste time. Let's get right to it. But before we get into the different topics of today that we have ready for you today, how about we say welcome to the rest of the gang? I'm going to start today with the one and only, without glasses, way over there, Victor Araiza. Victor, how are you? Good day, good morning, whenever you're watching this. How are you, sir?
Good evening, anytime you're tuning in. Yeah, we always appreciate you being part of the podcast. And again, plenty to talk about. I'm sure we'll get into it, but always glad here to be with you guys.
And no glasses today? Do you have them there just like the Clark Kent look, just in case, Superman,
Yeah, no,
Clark
not
Kent?
today. Not
Okay,
today.
all right, you look good. You look good. I don't take you seriously, but you look good. Speaking of looking good, and before we'll introduce her, of course, we'll say hello to her, but always in New Jersey, always a new look there. I appreciate it. The one and only Laura Gomez. Laura, good day, good evening. How are you? You look happy, which is a start, right?
I'm trying to be happy. Good evening, good day, good night, whatever you guys want to, whenever you're listening to this podcast or watching us. Again, we appreciate it. And hopefully, we make you think about the topics we're going to talk about today.
A lot to talk about, some serious, some not so serious, but we do appreciate all of you tuning in and just beyond our families. We're getting a fan base, 3 or 4 people. It's part of us growing the concept. But guys, why don't we kick it off with what I think is an important topic, not only at the competition level, but the Leagues Cup. The Leagues Cup literally just being played this past Sunday. Lumen Field, close to 70,000 people in attendance. And the match itself completely dominated, in my opinion, by Seattle. This team, this franchise continues to set the standard, in my opinion. Let's talk about that first before we get, I think, into the troubling side of professional soccer and what we witnessed post-game there at Lumen Field. And we'll get back to the highlights here shortly. But Victor, what do you see from this Seattle team that deservedly dominated the team from Miami, Inter Miami?
Yeah, again, it's not a surprise. I think more people have jumped on that bandwagon that they're one of the exemplary teams in the league, or if not the prime example, because they get it right across the board. And in this case, 69,000 people filling up Lumen Field on short notice. Having Messi there helped a lot, obviously,
Sure.
But just rallying around the Sounders, Brian Schmetzer, the head coach, saying, sure, they got Messi, but we believe in our guys. We have Paul Rothrock, right, which is obviously one of the many Seattle developed players in this team, which is another aspect of this that this club gets right, the academy side. And then obviously Rothrock later on getting a goal to close off this victory. The marketing team getting behind it with, exchange your Messi jerseys for a Rothrock Seattle Sounders jersey. Schmetzer himself rallied behind saying this, something along the lines of this is going to be the most important game in Seattle history, right? And really selling it. But again, it's just another example of how they just continue to do everything right. Maybe they don't have the spotlight of an LA or any of the LA teams, of the New York teams, of this Miami team. But they were in the Club World Cup because they won the CONCACAF Champions Cup a couple seasons back. Now they've achieved every possible trophy they can. They've won Open Cup multiple times. They won the Leagues Cup now. And again, through many different ways, right? Through the culture of the club, through the academy system, a coach that's, in my mind, one of the best, if not the best in MLS, and a local guy, a Seattle guy as well. So, I think that's the one thing that really shines through from this, and for us here locally, why one of, especially Houston, and I guess you could even say this about Dallas, there's elements to why this could be done in Texas. And it just saddens me that we don't even scratch the surface in what some of the stuff that Seattle does right, especially given that Seattle came into the league a little bit later. But again, Houston, Dallas have history in soccer going back to the earlier leagues, and again, the same type of fashion, if not more, across different cultures, across the population, the potential for an academy system. So it's nice to see somebody thriving in MLS doing this and proving kind of everything wrong about, oh, you can only do it in Miami or LA. Nah, you can do it anywhere if you have the right elements.
Sure. And Victor, a lot of great information. Laura, I'll turn to you quickly. Your take on the match itself first, and then I think I'll take it in a different direction. If you guys want to follow me there, that's great. But what did you think of this match and the 3-0 win?
I think it's these kind of games that I think are good for people that are outside of the the MLS bubble, if you can say, because I know that a lot of people from outside the US tuned in to watch this game. Obviously, like we said, the Messi effect, and it's something that people are like, they're gonna get. They don't know the Seattle history. It's a team that has been constant throughout the years. I think it's one of the only teams that again has been constant. It has been always, trying to get better. Maybe not one of the flashy ones like Victor mentioned, but one of the ones that has history and continues to do it. So I think a lot of people that are not familiar with the MLS history or the Seattle history are really shocked to see this, to see all these huge, well-paid international names being handed that kind of score. Not only was it a 1, a 2, but it was a 3-0. There was some, and I think that the score could have been even, bigger. Miami had maybe 1 or 2 that I remember that, were kind of dangerous, but I know a lot of people were shocked to see this result. And it kind of just shows that, a team can be built by excellent players that maybe people aren't internationally, known, but I just hope the Dynamo takes some little tips from Seattle.
And look, we talk about the team. It's the trophies the team has picked up, not only domestically, but in so-called international competition. And we'll talk about the Leagues Cup as an international competition, Liga MX versus MLS. Yes, I think the franchise serves as an example for others and what they can do with local coaching, local talent, etc. Is the future, Victor, models like this in showing that a Brian Schmetzer can definitely lead teams if given the time and the resources? And you talked about the love for the crest, I think, in our last podcast. That is literally, these aren't a bunch of hired guns. Of course, there are players that have come from other parts of the world, but this is home for many people, and they live it. And I've been to Lumen Field several times. I've lived matches there, even when it's not sold out. But when you have 70,000 people, it's something to behold. I just don't see that in Houston right now, Victor. And I don't want to poo-poo on it. I wish it was happening. The history, the legacy, the love is not there. Am I wrong?
I think again, they exemplify soccer community. I mean, for as much as we hear it down here, I mean, this is years and years, and Portland does it too. So I want to give them credit. I don't know if it's something that's exclusive to the Pacific Northwest.
Maybe.
I don't think it is, but I think they did such a good job of bringing, those clubs that were formed in the earlier leagues that stuck around, right? Seattle stuck around in the USL until they came into MLS.
And I'm going to interrupt you, Victor. Seattle Sounders, Portland Timbers, these were teams that go back to the NASL. When I was a young man, and I remember, the Vancouver Whitecaps were also part of the old
Whitecaps
NASL.
As well.
So there is history there in the Pacific Northwest. Cascadia, I think it's another reference to that part of the world. It's a long way off, by the way, 5 hours in the air. But there's a rich history tradition that's continued that goes back 40 years. So maybe that's part of the seed in this. I interrupted you,
and
like always.
Seattle, because Seattle, they weren't going to be called the Sounders, if I remember correctly. They put it up to a vote, and enough people wrote in the Sounders name. That's what preserved it going into MLS. Yeah. And then, of course, the way they come into the league, the Dynamo beat him in a playoff series there in the first couple of years, and then eventually they just kind of kept moving on, and left other teams as well kind of behind. I believe they've only missed the playoffs one season, and that was the year that they put it all into the beginning of the year for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. That's the only season where they missed the MLS Cup playoffs, if I'm correct. And again, local talent, right? We mentioned Rothrock, the Roldan brothers, uh, among others. The integration of that, the culture that's lived. I mean, it baffles me here that, and I say I go to Houston because it's again so close and dear to our hearts. I was born in this city to see or to hear that this club is not even doesn't welcome soccer people, doesn't want soccer people because it's too out of the box, or I don't know what the hell they're trying to do. Where in Seattle, that's welcome. That's part of it. You have to be ingrained in that, right? And there's a few elements that probably should be in Houston. Craig Weibel as the general manager,
Former Dynamo
Osase de
player.
Rosario,
Yep.
Osase de Rosario, who scored the opening goal, son of Dwayne de Rosario. I mean, you think that legacy should be continued here in Houston? But I mean, again, Schmetzer to, when he used to play, what was it, indoor soccer?
He did play
with the
yeah.
Sea Dogs.
Yep.
And staying.
He played in
staying
Tacoma
through to
as
Seattle.
well. Yeah.
The way that ended up being, where he, stuck around whenever he was called on to be the interim, leads them to their first MLS Cup, and then now the rest is history. But again, a gentleman at head coach as well, not just a Seattle guy. Respectful, doesn't make excuses, does the tactical changes. That's why, for my money, the best coach in Major League Soccer. And you saw the way they handled Miami, and I didn't hear them say, "Hey, we didn't have Nuhu Tolo, one of our better defenders." They went out and found a way to get it done at home, rallied the home crowd around them to show up, to root for them, despite some of the murmurs already on social media about, oh, this is too expensive. That it's a cash grab because Messi's coming into town. They're probably going to give it to Miami. He said, "Listen, it's a once in a lifetime ticket.
Sure.
Messi is coming to Seattle to play on our turf. We're playing for a trophy. Come on out, support us, and look at the memory that they've made."
And they did. And look, I wanted to first focus on the match itself. Congratulations to Seattle. They deserve it. To me, yes, Miami had opportunities you saw in the highlights, but Seattle, to me, controlled the pace, controlled the rhythm. It was an exciting match. I think what happens in my mind now, and we switch gears here, Laura, I'll go with you, is that there's a lot of talk, and I think rightly so, about what happened immediately afterwards. When the whistle blew, it was 3-0, and the brawl that was started, and I reviewed film. I've looked at several angles. I was watching it live at the moment. Yes, my perspective on things was that, is there an investigation about who started it, quote unquote? My take, I will give you in a second, but Laura, what happened next, I think, to me, taints individual players from Miami, taints potentially what people were talking about instead of the victory and what Seattle has built. And that's a shame. And I'll give you my full take in a moment, but I'll let you take it from here. As we also look beyond the brawl, I think, Laura, one of the most controversial moments in Leagues Cup history, and maybe in MLS history, which you're watching now.
No, yeah. I mean, I think that going to what you said, that you think it might tarnish individual players. Juarez has he's been tarnished.
You can call him whatever
Suarez,
you want. Juarez,
Suarez.
whatever.
Suarez. Sorry. There you go. Juarez again. Suarez has been tarnished himself. It's not the first time. It's I think like the fifth or sixth time that he's done something. We have to look back on his biting incidents. I want to say it's 3 of them. The last one was like in 2014, and then recently he also had where he grabbed a player, I want to say from New York, and grabbed them by the neck, and I think he did have some kind of repercussion for that. I've seen him play a lot with the Uruguay jersey. Because I watch, the Colombian games, and it's always a very high tension game with Colombia and Uruguay. Colombia has had good results against Uruguay, and Suarez has always had this kind of attitude, has always had this, I don't know what you would call the, bad sportsmanship. I don't know. And it came out once again. I'm pretty sure he was very upset at himself, at his team. I don't know. But this is not the way to solve things. I think that, the team already lost, and it was an embarrassing loss, I guess, for them, 3-0. But to react that kind of way, and then to just take it to another level, we know that sometimes tensions get really high, and there's these kind of incidents. But one thing is kind of like having that brawl, and the moment of the high heat and emotions, but then another one is like really taking it to another horrible level of spitting on someone's face. I mean, I think that that's unexcusable. I think that's disgusting. I think that is very low of yourself to do that as a human being in general, but for you to be a person of international fame and to get paid that much and to be on TV and to be a player that wears the Uruguay jersey, has worn other big name jerseys, and for little kids to look up to you, and you keep doing these kind of things, he needs to retire. I mean, I've never honestly been a fan of him, so
yeah. So
I shouldn't even give that much info on it, but I think that he's done his job in tarnishing himself. I do disagree with you, Alex, in the sense of like this is taking attention from what Seattle did. I don't think it did, because it's different. It's different subjects. I think that people are amazed, that they beat Messi and the Friends, and especially at the international level. But if you talk to anybody in South America, they'll be like, "Oh, Suarez, yeah, okay," and we've seen this. Like, and a lot of things that he's done haven't made headlines. But if you ask those teams, like he's done a lot of unsportsmanlike things a lot throughout his career.
Sure. So Laura, and we will disagree on this point. When you look at headlines, Luis Suarez sparks chaos after Inter Miami League Cup loss. One headline. Second headline, Luis Suarez spits on opposing staffer after Seattle beat Miami 3-0 in Leagues Cup final. For most of the people that aren't following MLS soccer or Leagues Cup, the headline is Luis Suarez spitting. Is Inter Miami behaving badly, being sore losers? I could go off on this because it's so easy. It's a shame that we're even having to talk about this and not spending more time, like we did a few minutes ago, on the substance, on MLS winning, on MLS defeating Suárez and Messi, and what that means to U.S. soccer and to MLS soccer. But this man, as you said, Laura, the example he sets for young children. Here's the problem, friends, and I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to talk about this again and what's on my mind. What Miami did and the way they behave and the way they try to cheat, quote me, it's live, I'm saying it, is something that trickles down to 10-year-old boys and girls who try to behave the same way on Saturday and Sunday at the local park. They'll see Suárez taking dives. They'll see Suárez biting. They'll see Suárez spitting, and they'll think it's okay. It's not okay. And the shame of it all, and I'm already seeing it, is deflection. Well, MLS is not involved because it's a Leagues Cup competition, so I'm not going to get involved. Inter Miami is not going to do that because then they're going to upset Messi. We don't want to upset Messi. We were talking about another contract for them. This is going to go under the rug. It's going to be a slap on the wrist, and shame on us for allowing that to happen. So I know someone will pick up on this. I've got a lot more to say, but that's how extreme I think this is. Laura, Victor, if we don't do something about it now, it's going to continue. How is it, Laura, Victor, that Suárez, with all that history, is still being glorified in our sport? Shame on all of us. I'll be quiet, Victor. I'll let you have the floor.
Well, because he's had an exemplary career. I don't know if, I think we all have our bad moments. It doesn't not make it unacceptable. But again, it's probably not going to amount to anything other than, if they do suspend him, it'll be, like you said, a slap on the wrist. There's reports that he's probably going to be leaving Inter Miami after the season, or this was going to be his last year with Inter Miami. We'll see.
Yeah.
And if he's retiring, what ends up happening? If that's the case, I mean, it might even be something where they suspend him from future Leagues Cup games or something, however many it may be. That won't matter if he doesn't play it next year, right? I think, this is a CONCACAF sanctioned competition, but I guess there's a fine line that CONCACAF doesn't run it, right? It's organized between, I think we got to kind of do a little digging to see, but it's a collaboration between Liga MX and MLS, but it doesn't fall under league play. So that's where you're saying he's not going to get fined by MLS. He's not going to get any MLS suspension.
Forgive me, Victor. Don Garber wants nothing to do with this. This hurts his brand. This hurts the MLS.
Now they could if they wanted to, right? I mean, under conduct.
Well, that's my next question to all of you. I'll let you finish, but I'm going to put you guys on the spot. What would you do if you were the leader of the league or leader of that club? But I'll let you finish first, sir.
Well, if you're the leader of the club, I think that's where you don't wait for MLS or Leagues Cup or whoever. You gotta, Beckham and company, they have to get out in front of it. They won't.
Victor, that was days ago. They're not doing anything.
Yeah,
right, but I'm saying, that's got to be the first line that says, listen, as a club, this is unacceptable. This doesn't represent our club. Whoever you may be, you can be Luis Suarez and Lionel Messi, but if you behave like this is not acceptable for the reasons you just mentioned. This is not an example we want to set in our community. This is not an example we want to set to younger fans of Inter Miami. This is not going to fly.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to allow the player to rectify, apologize, get his redemption, but we're also going to, give him a punishment for this, because we have to set an example that this can't be the perception of Inter Miami that you give worldwide to people.
Exactly.
That this is acceptable.
Agreed. And to me, it's already coming too late. Laura, same question to you. What do you do if you're in a leadership position? You are in a leadership position. You have a voice. What should we do about this? What should Miami do about this? What should MLS do about this?
I mean, I think that Miami should be the ones that if the MLS is not going to do anything, Miami should at least take the charge and take responsibility of their players, right? And sit them down for at least 4 to 5 games. I think that, that's the minimum, and make him apologize publicly. Will it be done? In the past things that Miami hasn't really gotten any consequences of several things that they have done. An example, like, Messi not showing up to whatever games he doesn't want to show up in, or doing other things. It hasn't really had a good show that Miami really cares what the MLS is telling them what to do, or can control their players. And like Victor said, I think that it's horrible, because it sets a bad example for the MLS. It sets a bad example for kids that are watching this. I think that as adults, we have to have consequences, because then we have people that go all their lives without having consequences. And then when somebody puts a stop to them, want to play the victim card and say, oh, I didn't know, nobody put a stop to them. And I think that Suárez hasn't had second chances. I think he's had third and fourth and fifth. So honestly, like, as a Colombian, I guess, or as a Southern American, I wouldn't say that we glorify him in the sport. I think that it's embarrassing. We're embarrassed. He's like in South America, like, again, we're like, whatever. He might be glorified more in the international level or in Uruguay, because he's done things for the team, put him on the map, or whatever they want to say. But it's embarrassing at this point. It's really embarrassing to keep continuing to do this over and over and over again. Yeah.
Well, so let me add just one piece. And friends, we want you to chime in. What do you think? What should happen to Luis Suarez? What should happen to Inter Miami? Because there were several other players that were throwing punches that were visibly upset. Here's my last take on this for the moment. I think this is an extension of the culture of cheating, of trying to get away with as much as possible. A shirt pull, a dive, a yelling at the referee to change which way the throw-in should go. This is that culture continuing without any control from our sport. One thing leads to the other. And I hear this with 10-year-old kids and their parents saying, how much can you get away with? They're doing it. They're successful. take the dive. So they try to squeeze as much out of the moment, faking dives, faking that somebody punched me, faking that somebody called me a name. It's a plague, unfortunately. And look what it reaches. Entitled players who are sore losers, who feel that they are above everybody else. It's a shame, and it should not be tolerated. So, Victor, I'll give you the last word on what we saw up at Lumen Field and where we go from here, because this could be a moment of reflection for all of us. And I think it's an important moment, Victor. I don't think I'm overemphasizing it. You can clearly tell it bothers me, but forget about me. What does this mean for our sport? I'll let you have the last word.
Well, it depends which way you want to. What do you want to focus on? I choose to focus on another triumph for Seattle. Again, getting this last piece of silverware, or latest piece of silverware, to kind of complete their collection. It also, because they already qualified by reaching the final to the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Now they get a bye to the round of 16 of the 2026 edition. So we'll see if they're able to repeat in now under a new edition. But that's what I take away from it. It's been an incredible summer for Seattle. They were in the Club World Cup. They didn't perform the best because of the opponents that they were drawn in with, but they got to play at home against, Atletico de Madrid, against Botafogo. I believe they also faced off against PSG, if my memory serves me right, at Lumen Field. So to have those games and then now to cap off this summer with, again, the Leagues Cup and hosting Messi and Suarez, albeit the other, and Busquets, and forgetting
Busquets, who punched people too.
Yeah, but putting that aside, to have that moment, to beat these stars of the game, to fill up their stadium. It's just another feather in the cap for Seattle. They're not perfect. I'll always complain about not having that grass field up there at Lumen Field and any of the Pacific Northwest teams.
It's too much rain.
But again, like they say in Spanish, envidia de la buena, envy the good kind. I think any MLS club is looking at Seattle and wishing to have some of these elements, if not all.
Well, thank you guys for that. And I think we'll close with this. As you can see on your screen, friends, the history of the Leagues Cup. And Victor, I'll turn to you. Fritz, you can read this for yourself. The last 3 years, some interruptions there because of COVID, and 1 year not having a champion in 2022. But initially, it was Mexican teams, Liga MX teams. And then it's been, as you can see, MLS, all MLS finals. Is this a direction? Does this guide us in some way, Victor, to say MLS as a league continues to improve year in, year out?
I think it continues to improve. I don't know if winning this competition necessarily proves it. Those first two editions were invite only, and then from 2023 on, remember the 23 and 24, they try to do every team. This edition, they reduced it to just 18 and 18. But I think, that's allowed some of the better MLS teams to play in this competition and match their wits against Liga MX competition and then even thrive, right? And I'm referring to, Miami obviously debuting with Messi, having that run in 2023. Columbus and Seattle being, again, one of the stronger teams in MLS and being able to prove it in that summer. I don't think it proves which one is the better league,
right,
because I think the results in the CONCACAF Champions Cup still prove that Liga MX have that dominance, especially when you got to go and play in Mexico. It's not as bad as it once was.
I don't know about
it's
dominance, but
it's leveled off a little bit. But across the board, it's not like MLS teams are beating the Liga MX teams handedly. I think it's been the stronger MLS teams that have been able to shine with better competition in these last two, obviously being Seattle and Columbus.
Yeah, Laura, your take on this history? It continues to build. Great final. If it hadn't been, I'm going to use the word tarnished by the ending. But your take on what these numbers, these stats, this history tells us about this competition?
I mean, I think that there has been an evolution of the MLS. Obviously, we've seen, the ups and downs of the league and what it's turning into now, and the players that it has drawn. And like you said, unfortunately, a lot of eyes were in this game, and for it to kind of end that way wasn't the best. But I think it shows again that both types of teams can make it to the final and be at a very great level. The team that has like the locals talented, and it's a real team. And then you have, the stars, and the ones that have the more shine, quote unquote. So I think it's a very competitive league in its sense, and I like that there's different types of teams that can make it to the top.
Victor, one more question about Leagues Cup relative to MLS, and then we'll transition to the Houston Dynamo. Is this competition on the rise versus U.S. Open Cup? Is that a good comparison? You're familiar, you've covered MLS and you've covered these competitions. My perspective right now is that U.S. Open Cup, that used to be meaningful for MLS clubs, is gone the other way now. It's not even, to be honest, a priority to most clubs. Is Leagues Cup now taking that energy, that interest, especially when the leagues focus on it? Is that a comparison that can be made right now?
Well, I'll tell you this. MLS changed the rules earlier this year, right? Where they, because of the different discussions, particularly with the Open Cup, teams can now be in, if I'm correct, 2 cup competitions now. So if you qualify for the Leagues Cup, that's your priority
Right.
over Open Cup. And so if you don't qualify for Leagues Cup, those are the teams that have kind of gone down to the Open Cup. If not, you have your second teams represent you, which is the case for teams like Inter Miami, for example, that have Inter Miami 2 in the U.S. Open Cup. So I think it's taken priority, especially because there's this partnership between MLS and Liga MX. I don't know if that's necessarily, inadvertently it's pushed off the Open Cup to the side, right?
I think it has, yes.
I don't know if that's necessary. I don't know how much that has to do with the Players Association and how many games players can take part in. That would require a little bit more research, but I think it's certainly taken priority over the Open Cup, yeah.
And we'll see then what happens. To me, the U.S. Open Cup run by U.S. Soccer is again, talk about history, talk about a legacy and tradition. And now there's other competing interests. I'll leave it at that in getting this. Well, let's switch gears then, if we don't mind, guys, and talk a little bit about the local team, the Houston Dynamo. Victor, away at St. Louis. And somehow Ben Olsen had a 3-0 lead, 3-0 up, and nearly lost it. That's one way to look at it. The other way is 3 points away from home as they seek to get into the playoffs. Victor, you were obviously following this match, but your take on what we saw up in St. Louis.
Well, good on the Dynamo for getting up on the board. The first goal came on a set piece, which is an area we've said that they needed to get better at, especially with a serviceman like McGlynn, Ezequiel Ponce as well, finding the ball, right, using his experience to put that in the back of the net. And then from there, that's where kind of Houston wants to be, having that goal to be able to manage a little bit of the game. Now, St. Louis, they had their chances. They weren't clinical, right? And this is something that we've talked about with Houston for the last couple of weeks. But, if one of these goes in for St. Louis, it's a different game. So, I mean, it's not like they were necessarily being a top-tier side. But, again, credit to the Dynamo for getting a much-needed result in their playoff hopes. I still think they got to get a couple more. It's not necessarily like they're, looks can be deceiving. Here's another one that probably should have been back of the net by João Klaus. So, and again, San Jose still beat them last week. They still have sort of a little bit of an advantage there, even if they match them on points. But the Dynamo helped themselves a lot here, at least in this next couple of weeks. If they can get a win over the Galaxy, they can at least, try to use that as motivation, right? But again, creating chances, some of these, this was the second one that it ended up being an own goal, if I'm correct.
It was.
It goes
Yep.
off the defender, deflected off the defender. But Ponce again, and Griffin Dorsey providing the service. And again, these are just the things that we've been asked why Houston hasn't been more of a proponent in attack. I will go back to the lineup. I think for the first time in a little while, Olsen put his best 11 on the field.
Wait.
You
You were happy with the lineup, Victor Araiza? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think given what you have, this was probably the best 11 that they could field. Now it helps that Syachenko is back on the field, right? But I'll give a leeway there with Andrade. Maybe Escobar is not 100%. But I think overall, yeah, you got to get Ponce on the field. You got to get Linger on the field. Reigns was on the field. McGlynn, right?
Yeah.
So I think you gotta have those guys, and Nali as well, which is one that fans have been asking for. Why hasn't he been on from the start? So I think from that part of it, that was a big choice, a good choice.
Victor, forgive me, just so we're kind of following the highlights right now. 3-0 up in the 86th minute. Here's what started tumbling down, and this is what worries many Dynamo fans.
They should be worried, because it's crazy to me that they get scored on, in those couple of minutes. I mean, maybe if they would have had 2 more minutes, it would have been a 3-3, or if they wouldn't have done their own goal, it would have been a tie. So, yeah, I don't want to sound like a sourpuss and say, well, they won barely, and they scored. Yeah. But I think it is important to nitpick these wins, because I don't want to be complacent and say, yay, we got 3 points. Because it's
they needed to get the full 3 points.
Yeah. I mean, that's
and if they had just come away with the 1, that would have been a loss. That would have tasted like a loss.
Yes, but I'm just saying that I just feel like we need to always ask for more, especially with this team, because we always have asked a lot of things with this team and kind of said, okay, you won 1 game, good job, pat on the back. But
this is why it's important for them to attack, to continue to attack, to not just sit on the 1 goal, because a team could have this, magnificent goal out of nowhere. The previous one we saw that just maybe inspires a team, maybe wakes them up a little bit. Then you have a little bit of a mistake here on defense. Understandably, you may be a little tired, but again. And you're able to see this out here with
it was that close. It was that close, Victor. It could have been a tie.
Yeah, it was.
Exactly.
It was that close. But again, this is the importance of continuing to attack, continuing to build the lead. The same thing we've been saying for the past couple of seasons, and not just sitting on that 1 goal lead that they've done sometimes. So again, this is, you end up seeing out the result. You get the full 3 points, and it would have been a disaster.
So you're happy with the performance?
I think they got a good result. I'm not saying I'm completely happy, but I still see it difficult. I'm happy with the performance in the sense that they got the 3 points. It would have been, again, it would, and applause for Jonathan Bond, whoever you got to give congratulations to. But yeah, they should know, and I'm sure they know that they kind of got away with one there if they,
of course,
if they're not more careful. But and sometimes you'll need it. But again, they did enough during the course of the 90 minutes, which is not something we can say that they've done in prior games. And this is the only way that they're going to be able to make the playoffs, if they risk and they go forward and they attack.
Well, let's talk about the playoffs. So here's what's remaining, Victor. Break it down for us. We've got a handful of matches, 3 away, 3 at home, and the math here is getting more clear for everyone involved here in the playoff race. But some tough matches here.
Well, for sure, they got to win these next 2 at home, which is the Galaxy and the Timbers. And if possible, that 3rd one with San Diego, they've already beaten them away. So I don't see why they, even if they're in good shape, I don't know, they're higher in the table. Maybe they'll find the San Diego that's wanting to rest players. But especially 2 out of 3, if not all 3 at home, that's going to be vital to their playoff hopes. And then if they can take a point at least from these road games, Rapids, Nashville, Kansas City is maybe one they could win. I mean, that's the only way. They don't necessarily have to win it all out, but they gotta close here strong, and that means not dropping any points.
Absolutely. Laura, your take on what we're seeing, which is the end of the season already before we're in September.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing that Victor said. I mean, I think that every point right now is crucial. I mean, they have to, every point is going to count and really make a difference to see if they make it to the playoffs or not. Um, so the only option really is to win. And like I asked Victor if he was happy with the performance, out of 10, I would probably give them, I would say a 7, because I think that it's dangerous to let them catch up in the last, five, what was it, the last 6, 5, 7 minutes of a match, and that happened. I mean, they were lucky they had a good number of cushion of goals, but you know, just being nitpicky.
3 points, and still mathematically in it, as Victor has discussed. That is a possibility. I'll stay with you right now on this shot, Laura, and let's talk about the Houston Dash. Switching gears to the other professional soccer team in the city of Houston, a team that knows how to end games, and they did it once again. In this case, at Louisville.
I mean, I've seen a lot of people start using Clutch City again, being with a dash, and calling them the new Clutch City team, because in the last 5 games, I want to say they've been able to pull off these kind of games.
And forgive me, it's 5 games without a loss, 5 straight games without a loss, and out of those 5, 4. Literally in stoppage time, it's been either a tie or a win. I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
Yes. So it's been 5 that they've won, have not lost, and then the 4 has been last minute. The only one that wasn't was at the home game that we were there. But this last one they were visiting, it was Dohan, and she's the one that scored, and I think it was like at the 91st,
92nd, correct? Yeah.
And then again, it's that kind of thing that, I think it's one of the most maybe not the most visually appealing goals, but strategic goals, and beautiful. I thought it was a beautiful, smart, well played goal. I mean, it takes a lot for a player to really do that, know where, the defense players are at, to see where your players are at, to take the decision to go ahead and you try to score. So I think it was a beautiful, well-executed play from the dash player, Johan, and it was great. I really, 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 really loved it.
It those are the kind of moments, and we'll see it here in a few minutes coming up. But Victor, your take in general about the dash, and again, a team under Fabrice Gautreau that right now is finding the way, Victor, to consistently pick up points. That's what you want as you head in the NWSL as well toward the playoffs.
Yeah, well, it's a positive result in that they got a point on the road.
Right.
But as you mentioned, 5 unbeaten, and they're still on the outside looking in the playoffs. So it's still not enough. Now, if they continue on this trend, if they continue racking up points, we'll see how long it takes them. They got to at some point make these victories. It can't just be all draws, right? Yep. But again, it is positive to see that they're at least not giving up. They're getting something out of it. Even if it's at the last minute. And again, now it's just, how do you generate more goals? How do you generate more attacks so that you get some of these results in the bag a little sooner?
And not always having to catch up. It's one of those things that, I mean, as a player, I would say, as a fan, or even as a reporter that you're calling the game, you're like stress in the sense that they have to catch up to make that goal. And it's something that I'm sure that the dash players aren't really enjoying, knowing that they have to play that catch-up game. I mean, it's worked out for them, but it's not going to be good in the long run. And, just to point out, Louisville right now sits in the 7th position of the standings for the NWSL. So, I mean, the Dash did go face-to-face with a team that is, quote-unquote, already within the playoff list. So I think that, I mean, it shows also that they're trying really to get there. And what I like is that they're going head to head and not really being shy or scared, and playing at enemy lines isn't the easiest. So I kudos to that as well.
Laura, we saw just a second ago Jane Campbell, and she was on the bench for several matches this season. You've been at the field level at Shell Energy Stadium during our broadcast. Is this now Jane's team again from your perspective? She's played solidly. She's played smart. I think she gives the team confidence. Maybe her sitting down was part of a motivation factor. I think we're still kind of wondering that, aren't we? Her presence is important and invaluable.
I mean, it's something that we asked on several occasions to Gautreau, and he always kind of answered in the same manner, saying that all the players have the same opportunities, and he goes, game by game, and he sees what player is better for each game, and that he's open to like that competitiveness between who's going to be the starter. So, we kind of were curious to really know why she was being on the bench, knowing that Jane has been one of the pillars of the team for so many seasons since the team really started, and for her to be a veteran. And I know that a lot of the players feel comfortable with her back there because they know that she's a player that knows how to guard her, her area, and she has the experience. I mean, she's been with the women's U.S. team as well. So I think that she does show a lot of cool, calm collectiveness, and it's something that also, as a opposition team, to try to get there with a big figure in the back is also intimidating. I mean, she's been one of the top NWSL goalies for many
Sure.
seasons, and people know her name and they know what she does, what she's capable of. And there was one of the seasons, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years ago, that she was one of the goalies that stopped the most, I want to say, penalties um, in the season. So that was one of her moments that she shined. So, I think that it's the right call for her to be the one that's a starter, knowing that it's so close to playoffs, and to have, a player that has that kind of confidence and knows the team, even though the team has evolved and changed so much, she's been one of the ones that has stayed the same.
She has, and here we're watching the tying goal here toward the end of the match against Louisville. And you were talking about the movement, collective, the individual finish here, a little bit of luck and a little bit of traffic in front, but
Yeah, but I mean, look at that.
beating
It's one,
five
two, three,
players
four
there.
players.
It counts, and that's the most important thing. And the picking up of the points. We'll make a quick transition, Laura. I'll start with you on Angela Huclis Mangano talking this week, or will be talking about the team she's building. Give us your take on all of this player movement. We talked about it in our last podcast. Sanchez, Ordóñez, Olivieri gone. They're part of the history of this team, with new players coming in, young players being acquired, being moved to Europe to get experience, but also the team bringing in other pieces of veterans so that they can compete now. In general terms, what do you see? More positive than negative?
I kind of see a little bit neutral-ish in a sort of sense, because um, the players that left, I feel like they perhaps didn't hit their full potential. Like I mentioned before, Ordóñez was one of the ones that admittedly said that, she was grateful for the time that she had at the Dash, but that she felt she wasn't able to really accomplish what she set out for. And losing Barbara Olivieri, it's something that right now I don't see a player that has the capabilities that sometimes is needed in a team. And as far as Sanchez, after Sanchez left, they kind of put the spotlight on Ordóñez, and when Ordóñez left, and they kind of put the spotlight on um, Olivieri, and now Olivieri, they put it on Michelle Losey because she was at the African Cup. So it's been kind of like bouncing around on who's the player that's gonna have kind of like the spotlight on them. So I don't know, the players that they've bought now, and the ones like you said that they sent to Europe, will they make a difference? Will they even come back to the team? It's just, again, it's a waiting game. I do feel like there's still some pieces missing from the team, but well, I mean, I wish I knew what the Dash organization was really trying to do, and what was their end purpose, or what strategies they're trying to implement to make this team more attractive to the fans, or make this team have more points. Or honestly, I don't know what kind of direction they're going. I mean, like you're showing right there in the screen, like Larissa. She's a forward, and we have Lisa Botin that came from Juventus from Italy. So we'll see what these two players can do. I know we saw a little bit of let me say, a little bit of action that she had in the last home game. She had some ball touches here and there. So I mean, maybe once she gets to play and have more playing time, she'll be a key, because I do feel like the Dash does sometimes need to be able to finish those goals, which is something that they've had difficulties not only with this season but with past seasons of being so close and not being able to close the deal. It's something that we've asked players, we've asked the coaches. It's like you're getting there, you're almost there, and when you're showing on paper, it doesn't show the effort that the players have done because it's not showing up in goals. So it was a long answer, Alex, but I think that I would say neutral. Am I really excited with the new players? I don't know. We'll see what happens. I do feel like there's a little couple of pieces missing, which would make this team a little bit more approachable or more marketable for the kind of community that we have here in Houston.
Victor, your take on what Angela Hucles Mangano may be talking about here, the team she's building, and also Barbara Olivieri out. And we keep bringing that up because it's a hometown girl. It's a great story to tell, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I'm curious to hear what she has to say because a lot of these press conferences, it's a lot of fluff. I'm sure they're going to tout that they're on the road to the playoffs, and there is things to be positive about. Look, you mentioned some of the player movements that maybe we're not all on board or too happy about, but at the end of the day, Gautraud's got to make this his team. The head coach has to make some decisions to mold this into his team and to getting some results. If he doesn't believe the players, like Olivieri or anybody else that has departed was going to be part of that, that's understandable. That's his right. And we'll see what they do with the incoming signings. But again, in the overall scheme of things, this is a club that desperately needs to make the playoffs to give an impulse to the fan base, to the local market. I'm sure they're also thinking for the sake of the sale that's potentially looming, or maybe not, depending on how the team performs. But that's another aspect that we got to talk about it. But they do got to start to get some results just to have some improvement and maybe get to making the playoffs isn't going to be enough. Maybe for them it is. I don't know. Depending on what the ownership group, what the club right has said, they're not going to tell us, hey, I mean, if they don't get to the playoffs, it's fine. We're going to stick with them. They're not going to tell us that out loud, right? But that may be it. They may be saying we're patient. We'll see this out. But I think, they got to get to the playoffs, and hopefully there is a plan to make this happen.
Victor, that's why you're a lot smarter than I am, and so is Laura Gomez. Because you're already ahead of me. Is this a defining season for Ben Olsen as far as his job security? Are we talking in those terms for the Dynamo, and similar to the Dash? I know that the new administration, and Laura, I'll start with you in the Dash, and I'll turn to Victor for the Dynamo. They're in year one. Fabrice Gautraud, never been a head coach in this league. He's certainly improved the team when you look at most aspects relative to the past. I think he's got at least one more season, whether the team is sold or not sold. That's fair. I don't think maybe it's as immediate as Ben Olsen, but Laura, your take on both teams, starting with the Dash.
I mean, with the Dash, I agree with you. I think that they might give him more leeway or more rope just because they're considering this team being rebuilt again and revamped and rebuilding and, the Riri. So I think that he'll have more space to say, well, this is what I did this season, whether they do or don't make it to the playoffs. So hopefully they do for the first time in the club's history. I think that he does have more leeway again to actually to stay at least one more year. For Ben Olsen, honestly, if he doesn't make it to the playoffs, I would start to think for a change. And this is coming from someone that honestly hasn't watched all the Dynamo games. I'm just looking at the score at the end of the matches and where they're standing right now, and the lack of excitement from the fan base of the Dynamo.
Fair enough. Victor, same question. You can take the Dash or the Dynamo first, but I know that you've been consistent about some of these.
I'll go Dash.
Yeah,
I'll go Dash first. I think there's patience with Gautraud. I think with some of the latest results, I think the patience will be there if they don't make the playoffs. If they kind of end at the cusp, I don't think they're gonna cut the cord and start fresh.
Yeah.
But so again, I don't know how much pressure there really is, and even internal pressure um, to necessarily get there. And I'm not saying that the right decision is to say, hey, it's playoff or bust, or you're fired. But I do think
It should be.
they really do need to get to the playoffs to sort of save this team a little bit. Some people might say it's too late, but I think if they can help it, there's no time like the present.
Yes, sir. Save in terms of keeping the team here, or save in terms of the product on the field, or all of the above?
I think the more the first. I don't know if that necessarily keeps the team here, because at the end, if Siegel wants to sell to somebody who's offering him a boatload of money to take it somewhere else because they could get an expansion bid or something like that, maybe it's a moot point.
Yeah, sign
But
the
I
check,
do think,
please.
if again, I'll go to Vancouver Whitecaps. Right, that team was on sale in MLS. Now they got Tomas Muller.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, the owners seem to be backtracking a little bit, saying, well, maybe we just need an additional investor. Maybe we're not willing to give up the whole entire team, right? So I think, so in those terms, I think, the Dash has to show a little bit more as far as attendance, as far as rallying the city, and a playoff match can do that. That's why I think it's vital to try to do it sooner rather than later, but I don't think it's going to cost Cottrell his job, like I mentioned.
Yeah. Victor,
But again, having to wait till next year, it's too long a wait.
I promise I'll let you have the microphone for Ben Olsen and the Dynamo. But what you're saying in many ways is maybe the owner, Mr. Ted Siegel, is saying, hey, fans, if you want this team to stay here, show me. I kind of read in between the lines of what you're saying.
But it's also the opposite. Fans are also been saying, hey, if you want us to come to the games, you got to show us that you got a winning product
don't
here.
put the pressure on the fans, Alex.
See, I knew that would wake Lauda up. I knew it. But it goes both ways. It takes two to tango. But he, Mr. Ted Siegel, could be saying, where's the support? Maybe I need to wake people up here in order to say, look, this is a possibility. And Laura, you can't talk because the microphone's with Victor. I'm the only one that can interrupt, apparently. But those were my thoughts, Victor.
I think that's and it might be the reality, because I think it is part of the reality. But I think that's also the tone deaf approach to think that just because people aren't coming to the games, it's because Houston doesn't support women's soccer.
Yeah.
I think, again, whether they like to hear it or not, with both clubs, there's a context here that can't be missed, of years of bad performance, years of bad customer service. Neglect. And so, again, that's why I think the playoff appearance is so important. In terms of the Dynamo, I think it's a different reality, but Olsen's not going anywhere because they're going to cling on to the last 2 years. They're not going to tell you, Hector Herrera's no longer here, and all these other factors. They're just going to say, we got to the playoffs, we got to one game within the MLS Cup final, and that's enough for them to sort of defend themselves and say that Olsen's going to be the coach for them. Again, if we were in a different environment, different league, or just had a more fan base that demanded more, I think you would at least have the talk or the conversation, or Olsen would at least be somewhat on the hot seat. I'm not saying completely, but again, it's reality of where the market is. I'm not saying that's the right decision, but I think that's the reality. He's not going to go anywhere.
So status quo, whether the teams make the playoffs or not. That's what I'm hearing from both of you. First year for Dash, for Angela Hucles Mangano, for Fabrice Gautreau. Let's give him time. With Ben Olsen, the team changed from last year. We're bringing in new players.
That. I said let him go.
Well, so Laura may disagree with you, but but the status quo, is it enough for fans to continue buying the product?
I don't think so, because the stadium's not full.
Yeah.
No.
I think it speaks for itself, then, doesn't it?
It should, but again, their perception, and I know because I've heard some of this through the grapevine,
Yes, sir.
is that the city won't support, when I don't think that's the complete reality. I think there's a lot of context that's missing about what's led us to this point
Hmm.
for years and years, and whether the organization wants to accept it or address it or not, it's there and it's not going away.
Friends, what do you think? Those of you that follow us, Dynamo Dash, we are nearing the end of the season, 2025 season. I can't believe that here as we start September. What are your thoughts on where these teams should go, whether or not they will make the playoffs? We will follow, of course. Let's switch gears here a little bit and let's talk about the U of H, the University of Houston women's soccer team. And Laura, maybe I'll come to you first. It's great to see this team that now has a new coach with Ben Williams. Coach Jaime Frias, who's now an assistant with the Dash, is now in Ben Williams is in charge of the team, forgive me. And they picked up a monumental win by beating the Longhorns, the Texas Longhorns, at home 4-1. Here's some of the better moments of that match. But it really was, from my perspective, Laura, great to see the University of Houston and the talent they have continue to improve. There's been a lot of changes. The portal has offered, obviously, different opportunities for different players. But they continue this run against Southern. There was a rain delay on the originally scheduled day. They played the game in the morning, but they were able to defeat them easily 6-0. U of H women's soccer, Laura, it's a product that's here. We're showing some of the best images, but there's a lot of talent, and this is an up-and-coming team under Ben Williams. Hopefully, we'll talk to Coach Williams soon, but without a doubt, it's exciting what's going on down on Cullen. Is that the way we talk about U of H?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, U of H. Go Cougs! I graduated from there. I think it's
I
wonderful
think
to
we
see
all
that.
did. So there's another thing we have in common. Barely.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful to see that. I think that the program has continued to grow. And now with what you mentioned, the new coach, I think it's something that really does speak volumes on what they have also invested. And maybe that's why it's so expensive to go to U of H now, what they have invested in these teams.
Wait.
To
You
make
can't
them
be you
successful.
can't be happy for them, Laura. Come on.
Look, when I was at U of H, it was different. It was more, the people's college, and now it's like, the tier 1 or tier 1,000. I don't know what it is now.
Well, when I was there, it was Cougar High, by the way, commuter
There you
school.
see, you paid cents. You paid cents, not the thousands and thousands and thousands.
You know, I'm
that
gonna
the
be
kids are
honest
paying.
with you. I'm looking back, and this is not planned, by the way, friends. Just as a reference, when I went to U of H in the 80s, I graduated in 90. Just so you know how old I am, you can obviously see it. I think for a full 12 to 15 hours, if you paid $500 to $700.
Alex, you know what? I'm done.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
I don't even want to.
I don't think we ever even got to
The
1,000
boomers.
for
I
that.
blame the boomers for everything that's happening to us millennials.
There you go. There you go. But hey, but apparently our U of H degrees are carrying more weight these days. So we look like geniuses now.
Well,
Some of us. Anyway, Victor, your take on U of H soccer, and not only U of H, Rice is playing well, and we'll have more coverage of women's and men's college soccer. Rice is playing well. Texas A&M, another a program under Coach G that has been going strong for years. And there's so many other programs. We'll talk about Houston Christian University, just talking about the local Houston, University of St. Thomas. There's so many. We should go out and support.
Yeah, it's a good result. But again, one result doesn't completely make a season. I know in this case against Texas, it goes a longer way
It
because
does.
of what it means, especially with the history of the school. But let's see what's been able to accomplish here in this first season under the new head coach. How close can they get to the tournament? How can they do in the conference tournament? Because that's where U of H has sort of underperformed here. Especially in women's soccer, Texas as well. I mean, are they going to finally be a national contender? I think we've kind of been waiting on that for years as well. And I know we've seen some other Texas schools sort of surge, right, in the national scene, TCU being one of them. But
Yeah,
yeah, let's see where these seasons end up.
I'll end with this on the college side. Laura, quickly to you before we wrap up. There's so much talent in Houston and southeastern Texas. I won't even say South Texas, southeastern Texas. That I think a school like U of H, the women's program specifically, could literally. We talked about Seattle and the tradition and the homegrown players and Schmetzer playing there and now coaching. This should be a hotbed for soccer, Laura, in my opinion, where just from the suburbs and different parts of Houston, you could build literally 15 to 20 players just locally. Am I the crazy one here in thinking that way?
I mean, you are crazy, but not in this moment right now. I agree with you because I with all the colleges here, with all the high schools here, and all the leagues and the clubs that we have here, just to say in Houston and Katy and Sugarland and the Woodlands and the other local places that are near to like what the
All the
metropolis
suburbs,
of Houston.
yeah.
I think that it's more than enough to feed a team like the Dash, knowing that they don't have that competitiveness of other teams besides Dallas trying to take away those players. And we've seen a lot of these players go out and be in the NWSL, but never came through, or even, I don't know if they tried out. There's not that clear kind of path of them being part of the Dash. Her name kind of just went. I had her in the tip of my tongue, and I can't remember. There's two players, or at least two players that were homegrown here and are in other teams in the NWSL, and it's kind of like it's a shame.
Well, let me end because I was going to end on a positive note about U of H women's soccer, but now I'm going to turn to Victor. Victor, why is it? And you and I have discussed this for years. We've known each other a little bit. Why does U of H not have a men's soccer program? I know there's tons of excuses about Title IX, tons of excuses about budget. Speaking of a hotbed, Houston, only players. It's a cheap sport. They have the field. They have everything they need. I think to me, it's a sin. Yes, you can quote me, that U of H doesn't have a men's soccer program. They should work toward that. It would just grow the interest in the sport, in the university. It's a win-win, win-win-win. Why hasn't it happened, Victor?
That's a question for the athletic director. I think my answer for that would be because they don't want to. They don't care for it.
Yeah.
That's simple as that.
Because
and again, if they at least have the women's side, hopefully they at least put all they can into that and have that succeed. But I think we've seen the women's soccer team just kind of be existing, especially at U of H for years. So it's good to see them get a good result here against Texas, and hopefully they can build on this. But again, will they build on this? Will they start to make this to a contender, into a team that can get results? And then locally, why can't the Dash feed in to some of these local colleges and get some players from there? I mean, we talked about Olivieri and how good of a story that would have been, because on top of being from Katy, she was Texas A&M. But there's no reason to not go after more talent from these schools. And we'll see if that pipeline starts as well.
Yeah, we'll revisit the U of H men's soccer program, a little history on that, and now the new athletic director, Eddie Nunez, whether or not he can. We'll ask him why that's not a reality. I think it's a fair question, and I can tell you that previous ADs, you're right, Victor, have had absolutely no interest. They've dismissed it. I'm going to say it, and you can quote me. They've dismissed it as a foreigner sport. That's not for us. We want to be big time American football. That's our priority. They still have a long way to go, by the way, in that. But our sport has been dismissed by the University of Houston since I was there in the late 80s. Never taken seriously, and it's a shame. Hopefully someone will listen and will change that, because it can be a beneficial, not only business, guys, but it can be beneficial to our community. I'll be quiet and I'll take another pill. Let's switch gears here, guys, to youth soccer as we wrap up. Labor Day tournament just happened. Teams, clubs about ready to start their season. Laura, I'll turn to you on this one. I think it's important that as the seasons get ready to start, that parents start focusing on being there, supporting their children, number one, and also the environment, Laura. You've been out to so many games, and
Yes.
you see this with me, parents yelling at referees. I think let's focus on one thing, maybe being calm, supportive of our kids, whether they win or lose. I wish that were that easy, but as the season starts for so many kids, thousands of kids in Houston and around the state of Texas, I wish we could give it context and perspective because it's so important.
You know, it breaks my heart sometimes when I see the parents be so harsh with 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 13-year-olds. I love the sport and I want all kids to play. And, and I was one that went to go watch my younger brother play. And, I saw my dad be harsh with him and I would say, you need to calm down. Like, he's not going to listen to you at this moment. It's
Yeah.
those kind of things that I believe that you can get through telling your son or family member, daughter, how they can perform better, but not at the heat of the moment, especially if they lost. So I know that sometimes parents are so involved and so passionate about the sport. One, are passionate about their child winning, and are in general just passionate about just being right there in the moment, right? But I think that we need to take a step back sometimes, because as a person that's just observing or taking notes because I'm writing an article or something like that, I see their faces compared to other parents that say, you know what, let's cool down, let's see, we'll talk about the game later on. You did a good job in this and this and this, and then we can talk about what you need to work on later.
Yeah.
So I think it's just an honest approach compared to saying, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, knowing that they lost. And I'm not saying give a trophy to every kid and say you did amazing, because I think that learning from our mistakes is important. Having accountability for what we did well and what we didn't do well, I think is good, not only in the field, but also as we grow up to be adults, as we see in the US and in the world, a lot of people haven't taken accountability in other parts that are not sports, and it does take a negative effect. But I do want parents to really realize that they're still kids. They want to love the sport. They
Yeah.
want to have fun, and they're harsh on themselves already. Um, so I just think that sometimes we just need to breathe and continue. And at the end of the day, they're your child, and you have to support them. And if they want to play a sport, then that's amazing. But if they don't, then they can find another sport. So that's my opinion on that.
I like that take, Victor. When it comes to youth soccer, and you've lived it with family members, you and I have been out to parks where it's literally a huge business, and that's where I'm leading you with the question. A lot of clubs are pay to play. And we will talk about that one day because I think it's important. How do you balance, hey, I'm paying for a service, pushing your child, your son, your daughter to do better, but also balancing it in the totality of their lives? Does that make sense? What is your take on our approach as a soccer community to the youth soccer season that's about to start?
Well, I think, because of all the money that's involved, it's,
Yeah.
especially for some parents, the expectation is probably to get more out of it than just a couple of games, right? I don't know if that's correct. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
some parents think different than others. I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush. But I think there is the expectation of, hey, I'm paying so much a year. What is my kid getting out of it? Instead of what you just said, focusing on the improvement, focusing on the fun, plain and simple, because the chances of a player becoming pro are already slim as it is, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that goes into it. It's not just paying a club fee and all of a sudden you're guaranteed a spot.
No.
Exactly.
So, I think maybe it's just being a little bit more doing it for the love of the sport. And not everybody has to spend however much it is a year to get their kids into some of these clubs. There's more recreational levels, right, where you can start off, and if depending on what your kid is ready for. But I think, again, the importance of it is just to have fun at it, because I think that's the biggest thing too. Even the players that end up going pro, players that enjoy the sport, that don't feel the pressure to perform necessarily, put more importance into the development of it instead of just focusing on goals and assists, or all this other meaningless data that we have our focus on these days.
The focus, and I agree with you. Unfortunately, I think we've lost that focus. I think we're also running out of time. We've been doing this for a while in this edition of and never mind what's going on behind you. If you see things moving, we'll fix that, by the way, friends. Well, as we wrap up, and we want to focus on the World Cup, we have some news coming up this week. I think as we get into September, we'll be talking about the legacy project of the World Cup. So we'll have that on our next podcast. But we typically wrap up with what's on our mind. So let's start with Laura. Laura, what's on your mind as we complete another episode of the Soccer Tejas podcast?
Well, I have a lot of things on my mind, but I think the one that I want to focus on, since we cover the NWSL and the MLS so heavily, I think that I still have a lot of people tell me, well, the MLS draws more viewers and this and that, but I want to give you numbers because I'm already older, so I forget those numbers. So it's already proven that the NWSL it's undervalued despite the recent viewership growth in outperforming the MLS. So what's the issue here? That they're being underpaid, even though they're being watched more than the men. And that's saying something, because this season, compared to the last deal that they had for media, it was only, let me see the number. It was like 0.5 million. And this year they invested 60 million. So it's been growing. Now you can see the NWSL on CBS, ESPN, Amazon, and Scripps in other places. So it's growing, but it's still lagging in the economic part. So the viewership has grown on CBS 4%, 83% on Paramount, and the average view for like the championship was 816.8 thousand viewers. So it's more than the MLS, yet the business deals are not the same as the MLS. So yeah.
Well, that's
on my mind.
Yeah, well, that's on your mind, and I think it's important to remind ourselves of the work that still needs to be done, but also the credit that needs to be given to the NWSL and other leagues. Remember, the USL Super League is also a first division.
The credit and the cash.
That helps. That helps. So that's what's on Laura Gomez's mind. Victor, what's on your mind as we wrap up today's episode?
Well, again, we have the World Cup coming over to the United States, Mexico, and Canada in 2026. And we're in the final stretch here of World Cup qualifying. I think all across our Texas cities, we're going to see different watch parties, especially the teams that are on the cusp of fulfilling that dream of going to the World Cup. And in CONCACAF, we'll have, 3 countries that have the privilege to seal a direct ticket. Obviously, the hosts are already in. Panama, Costa Rica, and Jamaica are the favorites in their groups, but that doesn't mean it's a given. We'll have teams like Guatemala, El Salvador trying to make a run. Curacao also trying to make history in their group. So there will be very many intriguing storylines. I'm sure some that will tie back to our Lone Star State, but more than anything, the World Cup fever is already being felt. And if you don't think it is, find one of these World Cup watch parties in your city, and I think you'll start to feel it as we less than a year, a couple months now to the 2026 FIFA World Cup.
It's amazing, Victor, that we're almost there, and you speak some truths here that before you know it, we're going to be talking about the groups. The teams.
Is Colombia going to make it, by the way?
Look, I don't want to talk about that, okay? It's already late at night. Leave me alone. Hurry up and wrap this up.
I think that answer gave you everything you wanted. Friends, as I give you by what's on my mind, 2 quick things, and it ties our sport together in a negative way, unfortunately, this week, after what we saw with Inter Miami and with Luis Suarez at Lumen Field relative to the atrocious, shameful acts of Luis Suarez post-match. It sends the wrong message to the rest of the soccer community. It's a stain on our sport. It's a stain on what MLS can be and should be. It's a stain on what that match should have been. And that angers me, that upsets me, because someone like Luis Suarez should not be hijacking our sport. And he does, and he has through his actions. And it's a shame because now we spoke about youth leagues starting here after Labor Day. That kind of behavior somehow that was witnessed and broadcast throughout the entire world is deemed acceptable because so many children look up to a player like Luis Suarez. It's a shame. We need to change the narrative. We need to take it back away from him and Inter Miami and not let those kind of spoiled, overrated players dominate our sport. That shouldn't be happening. We need to talk about it in the context of the greater sport, but we cannot allow someone like Luis Suarez to hijack our sport, number one, and to deem him to be some kind of role model. He is not. It's a shame. And if MLS and Inter Miami and our soccer culture doesn't, our soccer community doesn't make him an example, it's shame on all of us. So that's my take. I'll take my pill soon. You guys can agree or disagree with me. But the last word, Victor, as we go, what are you looking forward to here in the next week?
I think I mentioned it, World Cup qualifying, but also World Cup preparation. The United States, we'll see what ends up happening there with Pulisic coming back to the team now, and
now he's ready.
I'm sure there'll be something to talk about for sure, regardless of how things go.
Laura, what have you got on your mind here as we wrap up and you look forward?
I'm going to be watching the away game of the Dash with a calculator in hand and a rosary in the other. And the same thing with the men's national Colombian team. So, yeah, that's where I'm going to be praying for these two teams. So, we'll see.
There you have it. So, Laura, it's always great to be with you. Thank you for your time and all your knowledge and your comments. Victor, thank you also for being with us. Knowledge, comments, we do appreciate it. And I'm just kidding. Both of you are amazing. And friends, so are all of you who take the time to watch us, to follow us. Send us your comments. Send us your requests if you want us to talk about certain things. We're here to help in that regard. And please find us and follow us on all the social media platforms. So on behalf of Victor, on behalf of Laura, on behalf of all our production staff, I'm Alex Parra. Thank you for joining us. And until next time when we meet here, this is what we call the Soccer Tejas Podcast.